Hey guys, this will be video one for a new series I'm going to do, and I'm going to title it How to Design Build a 58 Explorer Replica out of Korina, or what's called Limba. So this ought to be a fairly interesting video series, and I'm primarily doing it because I'm kind of in the middle of a whole bunch of different jobs that I can't devote all of my attention to, all day long. So this is always a great time to reintroduce something that has been shelved or that maybe you lost interest in or something like that. And I've had this guitar listed for sale for a long time, and I kept promising, yeah, I'm going to build it, I'm going to build it. And I just got so busy with other stuff that, I did work on it some, but it's still not a guitar yet. So let's talk about what I'm going to cover in this video series. It's always going to be titled using Stuart McDonald templates because years back I bought this template set for a 1959 Gibson Les Paul replica to build, and I've built a bunch of those. I don't even know how many I've built, but I ended up building a bunch of Explorer replicas as well, just by using my Gibson Les Paul or 59 Les Paul templates. Now, these are based on an authentic 1959 Les Paul that was owned by a man by the name of Dan Erlewine. I believe that's how you pronounce Dan's last name. He's with a company called Stuart McDonald and has been with them for quite a while. And basically, I think what he did is he traced his original 59 Les Paul, and then they produced these templates. And I don't know how they got around that with Gibson Manufacturing, but they offer them for sale. And I always title my videos, using Stuart McDonald templates or replica, even though sometimes I'm pulling out an actual, mother of pearl Gibson Manufacturing logo. But I don't put logos on my guitars. I might use them for scale or something like that. So don't put manufacturers' logos on your guitars, and proceed with caution. But this is basically for you guys at home that are just building a one-time guitar, or maybe you're going to build one for yourself and one for your son or your daughter or a buddy or something like that. So the reason I talk about these templates is when I built this first guitar for a client years back, and I bought these templates with the whole intention of, once I've got that center line and I know exactly where this pickup is in relation to that center line, because see, they have a score line right there. And then once I have, let me get my pointer. Once I have that location right there, I'm going to be dangerous. And once I have that location, I'm going to be able to build anything I want that is from this manufacturer, meaning the Flying V, the SG replicas, the Explorer replicas, and then obviously the Les Paul replicas or the Junior replicas. And I haven't built a Junior or anything, which I kind of would like to. And I have not built an SG replica yet, but I've built quite a few Flying V replicas, as well as the Explorer replica, and as I mentioned, the 59 Les Paul. And the 59, it's a little bit bigger in its body, and I believe in the length as well, because I restored a 1980 Gibson Les Paul Custom, an authentic one, and it was smaller. So just note that if you wanted to produce an authentic, like, Peter Green-esque Greenie or something like that, you need to get these templates. Or either I believe you could get templates from a company called Bartlett. And I've never seen or played any of I've seen pictures of them, but I've never played any of Bartlett's guitars. But I've heard, I don't think he's building them anymore. I think he just sells kits or something like that. So, but if you get these templates, or either go online to a company called Electric Herald, and you can download you can download the actual full sky. Well, you can download the file, and then you go to your local Kinko's, FedEx, or either UPS store, and you print this guitar off in full scale, and then you take an X-Acto knife and you X-Acto knife all this out, and then you see how here's your pick guard location, the actual footprint of the pick guard. Here's the footprint for making all your templates in order to make your plastic or either make your covers, or the location as to where you're supposed to cut everything. And this is based on, like I said, a 1958 um, authentic Explorer. And they are a little bit bigger footprint than your 76 model. I've never seen, well, I take that back. I actually, on page 3 here, I did make a photocopy of a 76 Explorer as well, but I've never built one of those because my theory is, why would I want to build a 76 when I have the ability to build a 58? Replica. I always need to say replica. So, on that note, as I say too often, or let me back up. Let me not get in a rush here. I've got to slow down because I have to remind myself, a lot of you guys out there have never even seen the inner workings of how a Les Paul works. But, if you were to build a Les Paul replica, then this template that comes from Stuart McDonald has the same score center line, but then it has the proximity, the location for your wiring channel, or the neck tenon, the long tenon, or the location where the three-way would go, or the routing location for your control cavity. So these are invaluable because you can just lay them up on anything, put it on a center line, temporarily tape them, and then rock and roll and build your guitar. And then obviously this footprint here, uh, there's a little bit of discrepancies, and I'm not going to get into that, but just basically always let this be your primary template. I think this one might be off just a little bit because all you need for this template is the inner workings. So I don't really rely on this outer footprint, and it might be that it's not even all that important anyway when you're working from one template. So, but once I had those in house, all I had to do then was order my. Okay, let me slow down. I X-Acto knifed those out. Top and bottom. I cut them in half because I like the idea. I'll get to this in a little while. When you go to your lumber supply house, you want to have your templates cut in half so you can lay them on really exotic lumber that's extremely expensive and determine just how little you can get away with, in order to pull this off. Or you can assess what's the minimum width and the minimum length for a board if you're ordering something online. And I get my Korina or Limba from a guy by the name of Steve out of, I believe he's in Seattle. Steve owns a company called CFP, Commercial Forest Products, and Steve has some of the most beautiful blonde Korina Limba I've ever seen. He has an incredible stock, and I'll show you a 59 Les Paul replica over there on the table out of blonde, because we'll definitely be talking about the difference between blonde versus black, because what's in front of us here, this is a black Limba, and it's a very vivid, it's almost like a pale moon ebony. It's so beautiful. It's wild as you know what, but perfectly quarter sewn. It's really rare. And when you're it's rift, but it's on about 85 degrees. Okay, I'm all over the map a little bit here. Let's get back to templates. But once I had those 59 Les Paul replica templates from Stuart McDonald, well, man, all I did was define a center line on this acrylic template and then use these right here in order to create my acrylic template. And then I actually have one in plywood as well, real nice quality plywood. But the way I did it was I just, routed out for the bridge location, and then I did a shorter tenon just because I didn't see the importance of a long tenon, which I'll cover that in some detail in the future. Some people don't like the idea of that, but what they don't realize is that the long tenon is kind of unnecessary in this design. But these are the things that I'll be covering in this video. How to build a wiring harness using braided pushback cloth, and do the vintage switchcraft CTS, and just how to do it. And I'm obviously geared up to build more than one, and this might be overkill, but I just knew that once I had those templates, I wanted to have the ability to. Sorry, I was trying to get my hands on this other material here. I wanted to have the ability to really, really process and think through this design and what was in front of me, so that just because of my experience, I wanted to, if this guitar needed to be modified or could benefit from a little bit of a modification, I was going to do that. And one modification that I have I done it on an Explorer? No, I have not yet, but I've done it on the Flying V, where I've mounted the Flying V neck at the 18th fret location rather than the 19th. I haven't done that with this footprint, but the more I built this guitar, the more I realized how close to almost perfect it already was, just right out of the gate. Now it's a little bit odd, and it looks big, but once you get used to playing it, I wouldn't say sell your Les Paul or sell your Strat or sell your prize, Gretsch 6120, but I definitely think this is a guitar that you would want to have in your arsenal, especially if you're into real straight down the line, just aggressive, like rock and roll. I mean, this thing is it's a tone monster when it comes to, just a really raw tone. So anyway, with the templates, or not the templates, but well, I already had the Stuart McDonald templates, but after I ordered the paper templates or the plans from Electric Herald, I knew that I was then going to produce templates like this, so that I could then be armed and dangerous going to my local woodcraft supplier in Birmingham, Alabama, and then sometimes I'm up in Franklin, Tennessee a lot, because I lived in Franklin for about 12 to 15 years and used to use the woodcraft up in Franklin. There's a lot of guitar builders up there around Nashville. And if I take this type of stuff with me, or always have it in the truck with me, then if I go in a woodcraft, there might be an unbelievably beautiful piece of lumber sitting there that's $40 or $50 or something like that, and you want to be ready to buy that, so that if anything, you can stick it over in the corner, let it acclimate to your shop, and build later on. But basically, I'll get these off the table now, because now that you see what it is we're going to be talking about in this video series, because I'll refer back to these a little bit when we're talking about scale and changing the scale, but I really meant what I just said about I couldn't find anything with this guitar that I really want to change much. And the only thing that I will say that I learned, and also you can learn a lot just by studying photos. And I've discussed this before in past videos, but I saw a picture of Eric Clapton playing a vintage Explorer. It was an authentic Explorer, and someone had come in and let's see if that's in the video. They look bigger than they really. Someone had come in and they had cut the entire wing off of the guitar, which is really sad, because one thing I learned from that is, from a weight and balance standpoint, Gibson Manufacturing had already done an enormous amount of engineering with this particular design. And when you lost all of that weight, well, it became a headstock diving, you know what. And I mean, probably extreme, because right now this design is already at the threshold where it wants to fall into your left hand a little bit, because the strap button is already, pretty far back from the 12th fret. Hell, it's roughly at like the 20 to the 21st fret location. That's the only mistake. But, it's kind of, you had no choice, because that was the whole design, that really beautiful square shoulder. based on the Flying V as well. So anyway, but I saw this picture of Eric Clapton. His guitar was butchered. Whether he did that, I don't know. I doubt it. He probably just bought it that way. But he had to his strap was coming down in this location right here. So they had obviously, and it was even as far, it was about as far out as you could get it. So it was obvious that that no longer worked. So they were trying to make up for it by moving the center of gravity a little bit further forward. So say all that to say this. Don't change a good thing, and you're going to be shocked to find that the balance of this guitar, and I've talked about this in a video or two, a few videos back, where if you lay a triangle on the table and you put this guitar body right on the center line after it's loaded up with its electronics and such, and a few other pieces of plastic and stuff like that, and then the headstock out there which goes on the right side, this guitar is almost perfectly balanced. It's bizarre. It's amazing, and I've never heard anyone discuss that. It's so close to being truly perfectly balanced that it's off the charts. So really unique design. If you've never owned one or never played one, uh, which wouldn't surprise me if you're my age, because back in the 80s and I was started playing guitar in the late mid to late 70s as a kid. But back in the 70s and 80s, you didn't walk in a music store and find an Explorer hanging on the wall. There was a ton of Les Pauls that they were basically, you could buy. I could buy an old Les Paul all day long for $700 to $1,000 tops. But we just never got the chance to play these until the company started replicating them. But no one was replicating the authentic 58 profile. So I had never even known, what an incredible design it is until I started building it. Or watching guys like I don't know if Joe Bonamassa ever played an Explorer. I know he played the Flying V a lot, but I say that to say this. I don't know if he doesn't play the Explorer. I don't know. I know the guy from Cheap Trick. Is it Nilsson? Rick Nilsson? I know he's a huge Explorer fan. But it's almost trying to balance just right there without any of that weight in it. So anyway, we'll talk about some of those things in this video. And then this intro video, I might just keep it kind of general and just talk about, why it was, we just like I just did, like when we were kids, hell, they weren't out there. It's not like it was a Telecaster or a Strat hanging on the wall, which they were, what's the word, ubiquitous. So they were everywhere, which I don't think you can beat a Strat as far as being like the perfect guitar. So let me check the time. 18 minutes, feels like 45 minutes because I've been talking all day. Yeah, and I didn't even talk about this guitar here. Let me grab this and okay, this guitar right here is a work in progress. It looks like there's still a lot to be done, but this guitar is basically finished for the most part because I've already had it strung up several weeks back and was playing it acoustically, and just to get it set up and everything set in. All the frets are polished and leveled. It's like jazz guitar standards. It's really flawless. But I ran into a bit of it wasn't an issue. I could have let it go, but when I was doing all of my finished polish work today, trying to achieve as shiny and as deep of a gloss as I could get with the sapphire blue, which is semi-transparent. It just always bothered me that the back. I felt like the back needed a little bit more depth. So I taped it off, and I did a little bit because I had already sanded it just like this top, and I had it glowing. It was really beautiful. And as long as you didn't stick it right up in the light, it was really beautiful over here to the side. And I know for a fact I could have shipped it to the client. He would have been cool, probably wouldn't have said anything about it at all. But there were a few spots that were a little bit thin. So I shot one more coat of dark blue on it. and shot it kind of heavy. That's why it's got all the orange peel. But I'm going to let that dry, buff that, and then I'm going to shoot a couple of real thin clear nitro clear atop that, and then buff that so that I've got a beautiful, beautiful slippery surface on the whole guitar. Okay, so it's one of those things where I didn't even talk to the client about it. I just made the judgment call because he's not, calling saying, "Hey, where's my guitar? Where's my guitar? Where's my guitar?" So, I shot another coat of blue on it, and I just did. So, and then after I shot that coat of blue in there, I was like, "Oh, what am I going to do now?" And I'm looking around the shop trying to figure out how to you know how to change, how to do something, and I'm like looking for tools to sharpen or clean up the shop. And I thought, man, I've got to get that thing off the tape. I've got to get this thing off the shelf and get it finished like I promised, and sell it, because I'm selling this guitar and this black guitar. So on that note, let me show this black guitar just a little bit, because this is very much exactly what this guitar is going to look like. I have a really nice stock of this Bolivian rosewood, which is called pau fijo, I believe is how you pronounce it in Brazil, in Brazilian. Is that? No, what is it? Portuguese, I'm sorry, in Portuguese. But nonetheless, it will have a black, okay? It'll basically look identical to that right there. But then when you flip it over, rather than it being black, it's going to be black Limba, okay? So it'll have this really beautiful, and I haven't even stained this with a darker stain, but I get my mother of pearl from Stuart McDonald. Those are Jessicar frets. They're the medium jumbo or jumbo medium. They're just like your standard size fret. You can see it's basically just right at about a quarter of an inch thick in the fretboard. And I'm not trying to sell you this guitar. I'm just showing you these are the things that you want to consider when you're setting the pitch on this neck at, say, 1 3/4 degree or 2 degrees or something like that. If you had a super thick fretboard, then you might want to have this neck pitch set a little bit less, because the thicker that fretboard, the further your bridge will end up being atop the guitar. This guitar is going to require one more shot of, probably 2 more coats of clear coat. This is all nitro cellulose lacquer. I've been building this guitar over a period of several months, if not longer than that. So I'll paint it and then let it sit for 2 or 3 weeks, and then I'll sand it and shoot some lacquer on it, let it sit for a couple of weeks. But nonetheless, you want to always focus on getting all your shape work where you want it before you start doing all your finish work. So, okay, so if you're going to build your own guitar, just work from those templates, electric Herald. You make the determination as to how much you want to do, or how much you want to maybe farm out to someone. But things like this, you can't buy this off the shelf. You just can't. Nothing about this profile. Take that back. There's one supplier out there. I'm not going to start mentioning names, but I was on his website and I was like, wow, that's amazing. I can't believe he's selling that. I was kind of shocked, but nonetheless, and he claims it's an authentic 58. But basically, if you just get the Electric Herald drawings, you can make your own plywood template. I wasn't planning on going into this much detail, but you can make your own out of a real fine plywood. I think this is like a 5 to 7 ply birch for cabinet building, like quality cabinet work. Arrow straight, 25.5 inch scale, 24 3/4 inch scale. The only reason I have the 25.5 inch scale is because I built a custom Explorer replica with a Fender scale, the 25.5 inch scale, because we put a Floyd Rose on that guitar, and that was a really, that was an awesome guitar. It played and sounded incredible. But I like the 24 3/4 inch scale on all the Gibson products or Gibson replicas. Okay. So with those drawings and the Electric Herald drawings, they're free. You can download them for free. And then you just have to take the time to make all of your own templates, whether it be um, for your control cover on the back. All that's included in the Electric Herald. This basically just boils down to uh, if you're thinking along the lines of the 1950s, you know, they didn't have CNC machines, so they were also looking at from a manufacturing standpoint, how do we make this easy, simple, fast, and just functional? That's all we need. We just need something to hold. We just need something to hold this little output jack, right? So why not just make a square? And if anything, after it's all said and done, to me, that's what is so cool about this design. It has that real organic, handmade look where there's no recessed round CNC machined product or no stamped metal product. It's just like kind of what was laying on the shelf over that to that side that day. And it's like, hell, that's all we need. 4 screws and a plate and plug in the guitar and rock and roll. Okay. Well, they weren't even thinking about rock and roll then. So, and this was probably in response to how the Telecaster was. And I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't take one of Leo Fender's guitars apart and just say, hey, we're going to take that Telecaster plate and we're going to use that as a routing template and we'll show him, we can build a crazy guitar too. So I wouldn't doubt it if that's the Telecaster. Maybe, because it sure looks like it. That might be a design idea. Do it, set it up like a telly. So no charge for that design concept. But when you're building your own guitar, you can do just that. You can, you could also do these covers out of black. Which look really good. The black would look good, but I got to tell you, I like the parchment since I've been using the parchment on practically everything. It's really beautiful, and the 58. That's what they would have been using. They did not have the black pick guard, not to my knowledge. Everything they were using was the black. I mean, was the white. And I don't know if it was a 3-plot. It might have just been solid white. Who knows? I don't think it matters because I like the 3-ply. It's really attractive. But where I'm going is because the Korina or the Limba is such a vivid wood, and it's always left natural. Whether if you do your blonde or whatnot, because they want to show the beauty of all the funky grain, the figure, and everything, and then it helps to tone it down a little bit with this real neutral parchment pick guard. I'll try to get it in. That's probably about exactly where it would be. So it's really attractive, the parchment against the Korina. So that's probably the pick guard I'll be putting on it. But if someone wanted black, I could machine a black one as well. Okay, and I know I'm just talking about everything just in general. So let's kind of talk about the route you would take if you were going to actually build this guitar. And if you're going to do that, I would recommend just go to my early videos from about 2 to 3 years ago, where they were titled something like How to Build a 58 Explorer Replica out of Korina or Limba. And you'll find this guitar right here, or this is what's left of it, or this is all of the drops, or what's left of the drops. You'll find this guitar where I built it on YouTube. And I think there was, I don't know, 14 to 20 videos, 25 videos, and I went into extreme detail about all the stuff I've just hit in general. Like, I didn't show you how to take an X-Acto knife and cut out the footprint, but I clarified the importance of that and why you would do it and how you would orient everything on a board, a raw board, as I briefly mentioned, and get the best usage out of your material. So if you want to know exactly how to do this, just go to those early videos. And I think I built I built 3 different Explorer replicas in extreme detail like that. So I think 2 or 3 Flying V's like that. And I think I've built three or four, probably 4 or 5 Les Paul replicas in extreme detail as well. So, and I'm talking like 20 videos for each guitar that went over a course of 2 or 3 months. So check those out if you want to. That'll really that'll keep you preoccupied until late 2025. Okay. But one thing you'll find that I do like to do is I love the idea of everything being vintage correct, even down to all of your look at me put it upside down. That's fine. It's funny when you're looking at it sideways. You don't know. I want to look. I want it to look the part, but once it comes down to the functionality of it, um, let's put it this way: I have never built a guitar without a double adjustable truss rod. To me, that's critical for truly setting up a guitar. Excuse me, the way you may want it, or the way a client may want it, because the first 4 to 5 years of my truly professional guitar building, when I was up in Franklin, Tennessee, I was building hand carved jazz guitars per Robert Benedetto's specs. I wasn't working for Benedetto. I was just using his video series to build those custom guitars. And he was using like the conventional rod back in the 90s, but I always incorporated the double adjustable truss rod. And Stuart McDonald used to have or they still have it. It's a rod called the hot rod, but it's a little bit heavy because it's actually 2 rods. But with this double adjustable truss rod, you have a single rod in the bottom, and then you just have a flat rod on the top. So, but it functions by opposing threads, and it will bow either back or forward. So that's called relief. You can give the neck back relief where you bow it back and flatten everything out. Or if you got yourself in trouble and you put your frets in too tight and it was bowing back too much, you can put forward relief in it to flatten it out, Excuse me. Or if you want to set the action up really crazy low, and drop the bridge real low, then you might put a little bit of forward relief in it, and then drop the nut location, everything just real low, and then run it with a really light gauge string or heavy gauge strings, and just change. In other words, you could set it up any way you wanted by having the double adjustable truss rod. If you only have the single rod in there, well, then all you're doing is hoping that the guitar is relieving where you want it, and then you can always pull it back if you need to. I don't want that. I don't want that restriction. I don't want limitations on me as the builder or as the player. Okay. So anyway, obviously this one has not been rounded over yet because I haven't decided exactly what it is I'm going to build, but it'll probably just be based on the it's kind of like the more of the modern profile. I always call it. It's just a jazz neck. It's a round, soft round C. It's kind of like an oval, and it's just insanely comfortable. Ends up being typically ends up being 7/8 of an inch thick up here at the first fret location. And when I say 7/8 of an inch thick, from the back of the center of the neck to the top of the fretboard, and then at the 11th fret location, it ends up being usually right at about 1 inch exactly, or just slightly under 1 inch. I'm getting to the point to where I'm actually building my necks a little bit thinner, because I used to build them 1 1/32 of an inch thick at the 11th fret, and you'd be shocked. You'd be shocked the difference between being under 1 inch thick or just slightly over 1 inch thick, because by the time you get up to the 19th fret location, it can turn into a substantially thick and fat, mass of wood. But if you're right at about 1 inch thick at the 11th or just slightly under, now if you want a shredder neck, you need to be around 7/8 of an inch thick there. If you want a really thin, fast profile, then you can go fairly thin right there. And a lot of people don't know this, but uh, don't don't have a really large transition from this thickness here to here. You don't want to feel it flare out a lot. You want it to be fairly consistent, maybe about 3/32 of an inch thicker here than it is down here, or something like that. Maybe 1/8 of an inch at the most. Okay. Or, then again, build your own guitar. And if you're lucky, just go somewhere and play a guitar that you like and ask the guy that or the woman that owns the music store, hey, do you mind if I measure that? Or can you tell me what that thickness is? Because I'm going to build my own guitar. And you'll be surprised if you say, hey, if I order my potentiometers from you, or if I buy my pickups from you that are from Seymour Duncan, and in other words, if I spend $300 to $700 on all my parts at your music store, will you let me measure one of your guitars that I'm wanting to build? And you'll probably be shocked to find that most people are pretty cool about stuff like that. But always ask first, because you never know. They might throw you out the front door. Okay, probably one of the most important things after this route is done to seal all this wood. A lot of people don't consider this, but if you're a touring guitar player, and the guitars I was building back in the early 2000s, I was shipping them all over the world, and I knew that I couldn't ship a guitar to Spain, or somewhere in Europe, or Australia, or I've shipped to Japan before, and I never had this fear because I knew that I did a really good job sealing all of the wood, whether it's exposed or not exposed. And you might think, well, what does it matter once it gets the fretboard on there and the fretboard is glued down? Well, that truss rod cover is not going to, that truss rod cover is not going to keep the pressure and the humidity change in other words, the climate. It's going to allow that to just travel right down that truss rod channel, and then saturate into the neck from the inside, and you won't have a clue why your neck is warping, but it's because all that moisture is finding its way down through that channel into a neck that someone didn't properly seal. And I've got about 3 to 4 coats of sealer on that. No, not this one. This one's probably only got 1 or 2. But before the truss rod gets installed, and then it will get a real thin. See, because you want to position that about 1 millimeter below the surface, and then you want to epoxy in a little fillet of either mahogany or the Korina Limba. Don't use maple. There's no sense in introducing weight. And maple, believe it or not, that little bit of strip could add some substantial weight. But these rods are designed to be flushed out to the top like that. But I don't like that, because if it were flushed out, when I glue my fretboard down, or when you glue your fretboard down, you would only have glue on this surface here and this surface here, and then 90%, if not 85% of every bit of that wood is gone. So when it comes down to your guitar neck, you only have a small amount of glue here and a small amount of glue here, and you're really only getting structural integrity in the inner center. But if you have that little fillet of material, limba or mahogany, down the middle, when you glue this down, you've made 100% glue connection, and you've reconnected it. You've reconnected a neck that you basically cut in half, and that's about as close to being cut in half as you can get. Okay. So check the time. 38 minutes, 40 minutes. That's not too bad. Sometimes I like doing these videos where it's just real general conversation, because I can just look at something that's in front of me and think, man, I wish I had someone over my shoulder when I was first starting building 25, 30 years ago. That would have been so incredible. But then again, the Benedetto video series, he really drove stuff like that home. Don't leave any unfinished surfaces, because all the guitars that I was building then, and obviously what he was teaching you how to build, they were hollow body jazz guitars. And we're talking, hand carved tops that started out, 1 1/8 inch thick, and you had to go in and carve out the mass of the wood off the inside, off the outside. You guys know this, and they're all arched, but you got to seal every bit of that wood. Just because you can't see it, That should be an understood thing, but some people don't understand the importance of that. You got to seal every bit of that wood and not have anything raw. Even these locations like here, you got to have where anywhere you drill a hole in there, make certain you've got it sealed up. You might get away with not worrying too much about pick guard screw locations, but because by the time you do a little bit of waxing or painting and sealing and stuff, some material will creep down in those holes. It's got a beautiful, beautiful, complex tone, and if there's anything that will create like a growling guitar, man, it's Limba. It is Limba, and there's a part of me, I'm shocked that maybe they have now. I don't know if Gretsch has ever made a chambered jet out of Limba, but you know what, man, God, if they were to do that, that would be a train wreck rockabilly monster. That guitar. So that might be some. I should know that because I used to be a huge Gretsch head. I owned a '56 Silverjet, actual authentic 1956 Silverjet, and I owned a 1957 Gretsch 6120, both of which I restored. And I learned more about guitar building by restoring that Silverjet than I could have ever learned from like going to work for someone or something like that. It was just amazing once I had that guitar apart, looking at the inner workings of how thin could the sidewalls be, or how thick did they need to be, where did the blocks need to be, and stuff like that. And it was amazing because to me that was the tone I was looking for. Let me check the time. Play because I was primarily playing like a rockabilly swing and that type of stuff, and doing the hybrid finger picking, and that was a great guitar for that. Anyway, sorry about that. All right, let me think what I might want to talk about here. I'm not going to get into, what pitch should you do your headstock or something like that. This is a 16. Well, I guess I will. This is a 16-degree pitch, but my Les Paul replica guitars that I build, I do them in authentic 17-degree pitch. But this guitar here, I believe the custom shop, I believe they're setting these at 14 degrees, but I set mine at 12 degrees because it is such a long headstock. I've noticed that I already analyzed all the string pitch and everything that was necessary to get a really good, um, down pressure at the bone nut, and if you should be able to see that if I'll stop moving around. The 12 degrees is plenty. But I noticed that if when I was at 14 degrees, man, this thing was amazing. That extra 2 degrees, it ended up being way down here, and it required a much thicker case or shipping. And I would just about be willing to bet you this guitar neck lower that's why they quit making the Explorer replica or the Explorer. The thing was so big, the case they had to build and the boxes they had to ship them in, they ended up being this thick and like 48 inches long and 20 inches wide just to get this guitar in. Whereas we could go back to, I've said it numerous times in some of my very early videos, Leo Fender was a genius the way he designed the Fender Strat and the Stratocaster, the Telecaster, well, and the bass as well. How he had that neck. Everything about that neck was very low profile, but it functioned and sounded incredible. Man, his cases were what, maybe 3 inches thick, and that equates to saving $10 on shipping for each widget that you're delivering. It was brilliant. I mean, just off the charts, brilliant. So anyway, neither here nor there. 2 degrees less than 14 works out well. Sounds great. And yeah, I won't really go into too much detail. I always like using the Kluson bridges. These are fairly affordable, but the Kluson USA nickel, they're like $30. Kluson. And these are specifically for the Explorer, as you can see. These in gold end up being about $80, but I think in the nickel I get them for like $60. But you see, this is the low E tuner, and there's the high E tuner, obviously. And then obviously the other four in the middle are just that. They're just square. They're just butted off on each end. So, and these, if you can see the color, this is the most beautiful vintage plastic color I've ever seen. They just really capture these spot on. And from a functional standpoint, you can't beat a Cluson. It's just and it's really affordable. You can't complain about getting your tuners for under $100 and them looking that good. And obviously, you could relic these if you wanted, or you could leave them nice and shiny. Which it's kind of funny. I really don't do a lot of relic work. I do some, but for the most part, if I'm going to build a nice guitar, I want it to be as clean and pretty as I can get it, and not too scratched up. But some people are into that look. So your Cluson stuff, all this is readily available online. Fairly affordable. You'll end up with, by the time it's all said and done, probably about $700 to $900 in all of the parts to build the guitar before the pickups, and then all of your time to build it. So typically, I end up over $1,200 to $1,500 in a guitar, not even considering my electricity and stuff like that. So anyway, if you've been working wood a long time, you got a good shop, and you know how to use a miter saw, a table saw. Oh man, and I can't even express the importance of an oscillating sander. That's where the magic happens, and it's so easy to build a guitar if you have the oscillating sander. And the whole idea about the oscillating sander, in case you don't know, obviously they turn clockwise, but they also come up, and if this is the tabletop, if this is the deck, they actually come up, out, and then they go down as they're turning So I'm just going to replicate. Just imagine, well, they don't come out that much, but if this is the deck, they travel probably about 2 inches, and it keeps an even distribution of all your sanding debris. The most important tool, other than the safety tools in your shop, is your sand belt cleaner. You got to have this because all this crap will build up in here, and you got to be able to reach up and clean it with your belt cleaner. And I remember when I first found out about these, I was embarrassed that I had never even heard of these. I was probably 18 years old until I knew these existed. But a good oscillating sander, table saw, miter saw, got to have a router station. And I will say this, I would recommend investing in a really good drill press as well, even if it's used, a real nice Craftsman. I think I got a 15-inch 12 speed Craftsman. Please try to get a variable speed drill press, because I actually chuck up router bits from time to time, and I'll run them at like 4,500 RPMs, and I'll do routing. Sometimes I'll do that route work on my drill press, or at least I'll clean it up. Okay, let me check time. Let me pause and get the table cleaned up, and then I'll figure out how to end the video. Okay, the thing I like about starting with some really precise templates like the ones from Stuart McDonald is it allowed me to very easily produce my own template. Whether I was building a custom guitar, a custom design, or either maybe I was going to build an Explorer replica with a Les Paul top on it. But where I'm going with this is by having the really high quality templates, it allowed me to assure myself that all my machine work and my fit work was just kind of very easy to produce. And on that note, I'll put my money where my mouth is, kind of show you. This is fairly difficult to achieve if you're just doing it in-house. Okay, let me slow down. I did every bit of this hill work with a conventional table saw and my miter saw. It's real simple. All you're doing, this one's roughly 1 3/4 degree. I'm not going to start talking about that. Yours may vary, but let's just say it's a 2-degree max pitch. And then I won't talk about any of this work right here, but by having the template, when I routed this tenon, it made this fit work just immediate. I mean, it was just, when I say immediate, it was just basically immediate, you know. And that's, to me, that's so enjoyable. Now, obviously, this is really rough, and I don't need all that's going to get cut off. But you can see the pitch. You might be able to see the pitch. How the pitch is that the neck is going to lower into this body a little bit more, but for the most part, it comes together very quickly. And all you'll be doing is working the neck down according to your action, and you're engineering everything based on your fretboard and where the fretboard's ending. A 22 fret is going to end about right there. And the cool thing about this, once your guitar is built, it's going to look like a 58 Explorer. Okay, so by using the templates or the drawings, the designs, you're really not thinking. You're just replicating what they already did back in the 50s. And to me, that's a lot more enjoyable than trying to design something custom. But if you have this nice work, then odds are, I'm going to be a little bit arrogant here. I think it tries to fall for some reason. Yeah, it tries to fall. That's okay. You don't want this so tight that you had to hammer it in. And see, I haven't even rounded. Sorry, this is a little chaotic. I haven't even rounded this over yet in order to fit it into the actual mortise. So once I machine that, then I'm just going to pull it out. I'll tell you what, let me do this. Sorry. I'll try to do it so I don't damage anything. But basically, you're beginning to work your way to the finish line by fitting these six sides, actually the number 6. And you might think, what? It's only like 3 sides. No, it's one side here. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'm sorry, it's 7 sides. So if that's hard to hit. And that's why Leo Fender was such a genius, because all he was hitting was like 4 sides, the bottom, the 2 sides, the end, and he was just bolting that neck in. But when you're actually fitting it in a set neck fashion, you really need jigs to do all that stuff. Unless, you're just good with your table saws and stuff like that. So, and also when you're getting ready to build a guitar, don't buy the body wood and then the neck wood from 2 different places. Try to buy one large board that you can get your neck out of as well. And it might be that well, how would I build this guitar? Probably the neck would come from this section of the board right here, so that I could move it down, and all of the grain and the chatoyancy and all the beauty is very consistent. And this blank over here might come from a 180-degree orientation, a different orientation, up in that location right there. Excuse me. And that's what I meant by, if you have these 2 templates, like the upper bout and the lower bout, then you can start manipulating them, and even make your neck template as well. Build the guitar on paper first. It's a lot cheaper in case you change your mind. See, that's a 25.5-inch scale. Changes everything. Then once you go to your lumber supply house, you're able to lay all this stuff on a board and determine whether it's going to work or not, or whether you even want to invest the money, because you might change your mind. Okay. All right, so I hope that was an okay video. Kind of general, but I haven't done a introductory build series in quite a while, and I wanted to get back in the saddle a little bit and hopefully, get some interest out there, but primarily let people know that, hey, if you got some time on your hand and you got these tools in your basement and you know what you're doing, then you can build your own guitar, because as I clarified, all these parts are readily available. So, and when we were kids, we didn't have that. there were a few things out there, but nothing like what's available today. And it's amazing. I can actually go online and buy every individual component or kits or you name it, and have everything I need to pretty much reproduce that 58 Explorer guitar and call it a replica. All right, so I appreciate you guys dropping in. I'll flip it over and then try to end the video there. Let me pause and get the table cleaned up because I always like to do a screenshot of the last shot. Okay, I don't know if I clarified, but this body will be getting a 1/8 inch roundover on the top and the back, which is vintage correct. But if you're really serious about building a guitar, go ahead and buy all the components. And if there's anything that will motivate you to finish your project, it's the ability to do your mock-up. And also, that's where all the creative ideas come from, just by, setting things in place. And I love it. I think it's really cool. Double-sided tape. And, I'll see how far I can tilt it. The bridge is trying to slide a little bit, but really, really beautiful, beautiful. And that's what I meant by, even though you got a real vivid board, by the time you get all this stuff on here, it'll really tone it down and turn into a beautiful, beautiful guitar. Okay, so hopefully that'll act as a little bit of motivation for you guys to build your own guitar. And there goes the bridge. I'm gonna set it down before I make a fool of myself and try to end on a good note. Appreciate you guys dropping in, and I'll keep this series going a little bit, but not at the expense of the blue guitar, the Sapphire blue guitar, because I got to get that finished and shipped fairly soon. And but otherwise, when I got some free time, I'll step in and we'll build a Limba Explorer replica, a black Limba, or it's also called Black Korina. So, all right, that's it. I appreciate you guys dropping in. I'll see you in the next video. Thanks.